Hey everyone, Sparks back with another Goddess Victory Nikke video, and this is just going to be a really quick tutorial on skill resetting and then also some recommendations on who you might want to reset because a lot has happened in the game recently. So if you're a brand new player who just doesn't know how this works, there are some important things to keep in mind, and if you're someone who's been playing for a long time, maybe there's some units that you forgot about that you might want to consider actually getting those resources refunded for. So let's go ahead and go into our Nikke list here. And I'm going to go to Summer Sakura. Spoiler alert, she comes in later as well. And then I'm going to go to skills. Now, there's two important things to keep in mind when you're resetting skills. The first one is that you have a limited time window to do so. So you'll notice in here we have this blue text right above the skill box over here that says at the time of recording that I have about 5.5 days left in order to be able to reset those skills. So there's a specific time window when you're able to do this, but you also have to use an item, and they'll give you items every time they do these events where you have a chance to reset skills. They happen a couple times a year, oftentimes at anniversaries, sometimes a couple other times. You'll just have to pay attention for when they announce these events coming up, and they'll usually give you about a week to do this. But like I said, you also have to use an item. So if I go here, you can see up at the corner here, it shows how many reset items I have. And I have 3 of these. And I will, of course, consume one, and then it will give me 100% of the resources back, and it will reset all the skills. So I can't choose individual skills to reset, but it's okay because remember, you can always reinvest in units. So even if there was a skill that I'm like, hey, I have skill 2 at 10. I don't need that anymore. Maybe I just want it to be at level 7. I can, reset everything and then just reinvest up to the level that I want. Now, the other kind of unique thing, or something that I think a lot of times people don't think about, is when you reset skills, you can actually hold on to the items, okay? So say there's no units that I want to reset here, and then, 5 months later or whatever, they have another reset time period and they give us another 3 skill resets. I'll actually have 6 of those items to use. So you don't have to use them. You won't lose them. You can reset more units later on if you want. So just keep that in mind. You have a specific time window, but you can hold on to the item. You just then can't use it until the next event comes around. So that's kind of how that works. Now let's talk about who you might want to reset. And if you're a brand new player, I would say your starter units, right? So chances are, you started the game, you went through the first few chapters, you did some polls, you got a bunch of random units, you're just trying to be able to push through content, and you might have, a bunch of random units that aren't necessarily high tier, or it's not a cohesive team, and there's just someone you want to reset. Like maybe you invested in Signal because she was your only SSR burst 2, and now you're like, you know what, I need to reset her. Or maybe you had even invested in some of the main character units, like Anise or Rappy at the very beginning, but you don't really want to keep those resources in their, and their skill levels, so you would reset them. Those are ones that I would say for your beginning players, definitely reset units like that, because there's, you've moved on to bigger and better things, the more yet meta units, whatever you want to say. So think about resetting those units for sure. For older players, think about maybe those collab units, like maybe we're desperately hanging on to, 2B or Makima or whatever. And, you really don't need to keep those skills leveled up, but, you were a fan of that character, so you leveled them up at the time. Maybe they were good at the time. Honestly, at this point, I should probably reset my A2. Although I'm going to contradict myself and not reset her because I'm just that big of a fanboy. So, do you. I can't judge you because I'm no better. But I would, those are things to consider. Now, let's talk about some really specific, solid recommendations of some units that you may want to reset. And keep in mind, these aren't bad units. They're units that were probably quite good and maybe are still even okay, but things have shifted to the point where there's better options. So if you have those better options, it might be time to reset them. And a big one here is Summer Sakura. Summer Sakura was basically our best wind attacker other than Black Shadow Scarlet for quite a while, and she was really helpful in the abnormal or the anomaly Kraken raid. But now a lot has gone on where she's not necessarily, peak. Like we got Mana, which, kind of replaced her for a lot of people. And then we got the Ava units that were really strong wind attackers. And now we have Siren, and just, Sakura isn't nearly as needed. Now, you might still want to keep her somewhat invested because she's still possibly going to come into play for various raids where they're wind weak. We still don't have that big of a selection for wind weak bosses, but, maybe you want to decrease your investment level a little bit at least. So, something to consider. Also, you could think about resetting Scarlet, okay? Scarlet has been past her prime for a long time now, and then as much as it hurts me to say it, Snow White, okay? I love her, but, she was amazing back in the day, but it might be time to reset her as well. Another one to consider here is Marshana. Marshana maybe was already reset for a lot of people, but since we got like Mast and Anchor, the Elysian Burst 2 options, we just have so many more options. You're probably even using Leona, maybe for Shotgun Team. There's a lot out there. The other one that might be like a little like surprising is Exia. She had a moment where she was really good because of her treasure, but now, at this point, things have shifted again to the point where we're not really making that same electric team. So if you invested in her heavily, you might want to reset some of those skills, although she could still come into play for raids, so think about that. Also, Mana, even though I mentioned that Mana was somewhat a replacement for Summer Sakura, again, depending on your account, you probably still want to keep some investment in her just because of wind weak bosses for raids. But if you're not worried about raids, you could probably reset her as well. And possibly Summer Rosanna. I want to talk about Summer Rosanna really quickly here because she's one that probably a lot of people already reset. And maybe you want to reset her now, but I would actually hold off because she may come back into play because of Mihara, who does sustain damage, and Summer Rosanna is the best sustained damage. Now, I don't know if that's really going to be worth it, but I've already reset her and I brought her back up to 4. Maybe I might even end up investing more in her. But if she doesn't end up being really useful with Mihara and you still have her invested, probably time to reset her as well. All right, let me know your thoughts. If you have any more questions on this, welcome any brand new players. Hope that cleared up some things for both the new and veteran players. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. It would really help me out. And I will catch you guys in the next video or stream.